Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Gloves Off with David Singer. I am here with my friend and ex-coworker, Ed Silva, and we're here to talk about what's going on in Palmetto Bay. Originally, I was going to limit Palmetto Bay to once a month, but somehow, like everything in life, Palmetto Bay seems to be a village that has numerous problems. I got to read the disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed here are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of the community newspaper, Michael Miller or Grant Miller.
And I got to warn everybody that he's in rare form today.
I am in rare form today. As always, if you have an email, if you want to email us and ask us any questions, go ahead and do it. We'll answer any kind of questions that you have, or try to answer any kind of questions you have. Or I guess Tommy's setting up my watch. It's 268000. That's my code to my phone if anybody ever finds it. Anyway, so we're here to talk about two things today: the bridges and the budget. And I think we're going to start on the bridges because that's such a hot topic. And yesterday's circus last night at the Village Palmetto Bay, the CCC meeting, or the CCC Part 2 meeting, there were about 50 viewers on and off all night watching what was going on. And I'm sure they were as distressed as I was to see how basically the four members of the committee that Mayor Cunningham personally picked out were all anti-bridge before they got any facts or figures from anybody. So I will start with you.
I do want to say, I want to thank you, first of all, because I know that you take a lot of flack out there and a lot of hits. You have your own unique style that's not necessarily the way I would do things. But I, for one, know, after many, many years of seeing you as being an adversary of you, to working with you on council, that I know that deep down you have a very deep caring for the village. And it means a lot to you, and that moral compass that you have it's refreshing to see it. And I'm not trying to.
No, thank you very much. Considering I gave you a Dead Man Walking T-shirt when I first got elected.
We've come a long way.
In an extra large, but that was my way of introducing myself to you, by the way, by giving you a present saying Dead Man Walking.
Yep. So, I mean, that goes to show you that sometimes when people understand what the village, and you've grown up there and you've been there your whole life, and I've been there for almost 25 years now, how important it is to us. And although we may not agree on a lot of things.
Not on a lot of things.
But we at least are able to have a conversation about it and reach a compromised position as we did when you were, when we were trying to get through some of the issues in Palmetto Bay when you were village manager. And that really goes to our point right now. I before we get to the bridge thing, I do want to say something that Councilwoman Marsha Matson said in an answer to one of our residents. And this is important because it really shows a mentality in the breakup of this council right now. She answered, quote, "You are mixing up the lines of governing in the village charter. When making policy, the elected council decides. The elected council decides. The manager, appointed by the council, implements the council's decisions according to the charter." Now, this is where I think she gets a little flippant. That is the law, and if you don't agree with the policy, you and the voters have every opportunity, every 2 to 4 years, to elect the different people to the council and can make the policy you prefer. I'm stating that because, as you well know, we've seen the misinformation campaign that's out there. And for a very, very long time, you've had this council and members of this council and their little shadow government trying to blame everybody but themselves for the issues that this village faces. And here's a councilwoman that answered this. Obviously, she didn't think I would have this in my hands, but answered this. She goes on to say, managers are hired by the council to be the village administrators. Council members were elected by all Palmetto Bay voters to represent them, and we are representing the majority side. To me, that means that this is a monolithic council that's in lockstep with one another, and they don't care if you have an opposing point of view, contrary to everything that they say. And that's important to say because that's very, very dangerous in the government, that you cannot address your council because they don't believe or care enough about what you're saying. And that's evident with the bridge thing.
Oh, well, you know my
the bridge
opinion on
thing,
Marcia.
13 or 14 of the 21 people that applied were pro-bridgers. How many people are on that task, now at the task force? How many people in the task force are pro-bridge?
None of them.
None of them.
Well, look where they live. Do you know where they live? Two of them live within 2 blocks of where the bridge will be. One individual lives a block away from the 77th Avenue Bridge if it's built on the south side. One individual lives a block, if not closer to the bridge, if it's built on 87th Avenue. One lives right on 87th and about 141st. And the other one came out beforehand, before he was put on the CCC, and said he was anti-bridge. So there was not any kind of, you're right, there's no diversity at all. It's you either do it my way or the highway type thing, and it's disgusting.
That's not representative government.
No.
That means that we have a council that's not willing to listen to huge swaths of our village.
That's more like communism, wouldn't you say? Well, I mean, if they're not going to listen to anybody else but what they want to do,
and this disinformation campaign is continuing now. Look at how they are viciously attacking our commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you agree or disagree, and I happen to agree with her stance, Commissioner Cohen-Higgins. Much has been said about she was appointed. That happens throughout the nation in numerous places.
Well, guess what? Guess who was appointed? The commission to discuss, or the task force to discuss the bridges were
they were all appointed.
That's right.
Now, let's talk about, I'm glad you brought that up. So here we are, we have a group that's picked by the council? Nope. The manager? Nope. The mayor.
Yes, by the way, I don't remember it ever getting council approval.
What gives her the right?
She doesn't have the right
to do that. What gives her the right to disband that committee?
She does not have the right. Those are both possible ethics violations.
I honestly believe that there's an issue with the way that she disbanded this group. She got up there in a speech that she gave that's on video, basically saying, I have decided to cancel our participation in this committee. And everybody up here is in agreement with me. How does she know that? Did they have a conversation in public, in sunshine, that allowed us to understand what everybody's point of view was?
Okay, 2 possible ethics violations. Number 1 is if they did not have a conversation in public and they all talked behind the scenes, that's an ethics violation. The other ethics violation is they did not have a vote to disband the original CCC or walk away from it. And number 2, to start the new task force to discuss a bridge.
I'm not legal, so I'm going to leave that for others.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do know is it's very highly irregular to have things done this way. I actually think she's continuously diluting our positions as a village and diluting our stance amongst the other municipalities.
Well, what do you think? Let me ask you a question.
Look, when she ran.
Give me a break. Give me a second. What do you think the TPO is going to do with the report that comes from the Palmetto Bay Task Force when they find out that she broke away from the original CCC, which was agreed upon, okay, and that the CCC was really supposed to be a joint venture, if anything, between Cutler Bay and Palmetto Bay, and she basically just said, I'm out of here. It got too hot. What do you think the TPO is going to do with that report?
Well, they're professionals. I don't think that they're going to.
Do you think it's going to have any credibility at all?
No, not at all.
Okay, none.
None. You don't pick up your toys or your marbles and you go home because you don't like the way things are going.
Well, it's like the mayor was acting like a petulant child.
Yeah.
She said, I'm going to take the football and I'm going to go home because I'm not getting my way.
Well, look, when this mayor ran, and I think you and I had conversations to this effect when she was running, I thought that she could unite this community. I thought that she could bring a different voice that would be helpful. The opposite's happened. You know, I think that she's just not equipped to make these decisions and make the decisions that her mayor needs to make. She'd be a great events coordinator, a great wedding planner. She's great with self-promotion.
Oh, let's talk about that.
But
do you know they just hired a PR
village? No.
Do you know they just hired a PR firm to make when the village is in such financial disarray, the council or the village manager just went out and hired a PR firm to make the council look better with public taxpayer dollars.
But they need a tax increase to keep the status quo, David.
That's right. So I mean, I mean, I can't believe they sat there and hired a PR firm to sit there and make the council look better because they look so bad right now.
I get it, and I understand that, it's beyond comprehension what's going on. Let's get back to the bridge. You're hearing attacks, and I'm seeing one of our residents that did this attack yesterday, calling our commissioner the appointed one, and saying that this is all a sham. I want our residents to understand something. What Commissioner Cohen-Higgins has done is actually give us more transparency than we've ever had. The fact that she took a procedural item to the BCC to transmit it to the TPO, and I'm using a lot of government ease. The BCC is the Board of County Commissioners, and the TPO is a transportation planning organization. The fact that she did a procedural move that was printed up at 1 o'clock on Monday, but that our mayor knew about in December, but failed to bring it forth to anybody else, really speaks volumes. She kept her word. She said she was going to do it. She said that she was going to bring it forward. She had that discussion with our mayor in December. And what she has basically done is transmit this to the Transportation Planning Organization for them to make the decision. That is more than what was done in 2018 when the bridge went directly to the TPO and bypassed the Board of County Commissioners. She's given us ample notice. The fact that she says that we're not being able to express our views is a crock. How many meetings have we had? How many countless testimonies have we heard of people expressing their views? And they're going to have ample opportunities in the future in doing so. It's amazing to me how our village has people that twist words and twist the truth.
Well, I just want to address something. Okay, so Bev Gerald wrote. I said I'm going to read some of these off, right? Bev Gerald said, "Why don't you admit that all of Cutler Bay representatives are for the bridge? Didn't you watch the Slant the Cutler Bay CCC members? How can you criticize those members of the Palmetto Bay members when 100% of Cutler Bay members are for the bridge? That's not true. Actually, two of them were for the bridge, and two of them hadn't made up their mind. Well, so that is like not the truth. That's the way things get mistaken because that's not right. That's not right.
You know, some people just are very loose with their facts, and they are just trying to push an agenda, and then we have a history with this lady doing so. I'm not even going to honor.
Yeah, but I just wanted to read that off.
It's not true.
That's the misinformation that's going out there.
It's not true. It's very clear that there are two members of the Cutler Bay Committee
who had not made their mind up.
That have not made up their mind.
That's right.
Very, very clear from day one.
And it's not clear from Palmetto Bay because they all said they were against the bridge.
And by the way, and I'm laughing because she's now saying what I'm saying is twisted, but it's the truth. I mean, anybody can call. Look, I'll tell you what. Anybody can call the commissioner and ask her the question. Ask her if I'm right about the fact that this is even more transparent than before.
Oh no, absolutely. A matter of fact, I was told it didn't even need to go to the commission. It just needed to go to the TPO, just like correct. What had occurred 3 years ago or 4 years ago when it happened.
That is
there was
correct.
no required step to go into
and you notice
County
that, and
Commission.
you notice that what they're doing here is
Yeah.
they're skipping over and glossing over the fact that our mayor knew about this in December when
Oh
they
no,
had the
she
meeting.
absolutely knew about it.
I mean, she's glossing over it. She's skipping over it because it's not convenient for their line of reasoning and thinking. It's not convenient to say that the day that they had that meeting at the Board of County Commissioners on Tuesday morning, our mayor was out with a private trainer taking a little video
Instead of being
at Coral Reef Park.
instead of being the most important meeting,
instead of being where she should be, representing our village in front of that Board of County Commissioners, or sending our manager.
Because you don't know, she may have gone there and convinced them not to take it to the TPO, right? But there was no voices.
If she had
there
facts.
was no if she had facts. There was no voice from Palmetto Bay at that meeting, so that's why it was pushed to the TPO. If she was there, things might have been different. I don't think so, but they could have been.
We also need to understand something that's very, very important for everybody to understand. There was a compromise that was done about 2 years ago. There was a compromise that I worked extremely hard to do that included the county and included Cutler Bay. Cutler Bay even passed a resolution endorsing it. The county signed off on it. Marlin Engineering did a lot of work to get that approved. What happened with that compromise situation? It was rejected by our mayor and council. They absolutely ran away from it. So it's easy to say no. It's extremely easy to say no. But what's an alternative? What do you do for all the lives that are suffering in Malbrook? What do you do for everybody that gets stuck in traffic? I'll give you an example. One of the most interesting things in the Miami Herald article from yesterday, the very first top thing is that they actually say that one of the residents in Cutler Bay comes into Palmetto Bay on 87th Avenue to go and take her kids to school. What did they pass on Monday night? Our council passed another one of these apartment complexes with a daycare and early elementary school component. So they are inducing more traffic into our community. It's as if they talk one thing and do everything possible opposite to make it even a more worse situation for our residents.
Well, on top of that, they have a committee last night where one of the members doesn't even know that there's no such thing as home schools anymore, that you can basically take your child and put them in any school you want if there's an opening. Because he said, and that's part of the traffic problem.
David, that is the genesis of our issue. The state allowed for you to be able to move your kids around in a district. Going back in history, the truth is, when a school was planned for a place, you would have to do a traffic study and explain how and understand how traffic worked. When the state came around and said that you can have a choice of schools, there was no accompanying traffic studies for it. And that's really what's led to a lot of these issues. And yet the school board, which collects our taxes, is very silent on the fact that they are creating a traffic nightmare in a lot of places.
And with no busing for the most part.
Yeah. And
right?
Then they'll say we can't. That's not our responsibility. But that is what's creating a vicious cycle of issues that are cascading and cascading. But when you have a council that's approving even more school choices in Palmetto Bay, but at the same time saying no to bridges, you shake your head and say, how is that even possible?
Okay, they approved 6,500 apartments in Palmetto Bay, and they're coming.
No, they didn't. That's not what they say.
Well, yeah, I know that's not what they say. Okay, so let's shift focus for a second and let's talk about last night. So last night was the first time I've actually heard that there were more pro-bridge advocates than anti-bridge advocates, which is a huge turnaround that I've never seen before. Usually it's the other way around. Some of the anti-bridge people, I'm not saying all of them, but some of the anti-bridge people came off as extremely elitist, which kind of boggled my mind because I didn't think Palmetto Bay had that type of person living in the village. Some of the individuals who spoke on anti-bridge, and we'll get through some of this, said it will be increased crime, which there's no facts for. Increased danger, there's no facts for house depreciation, no facts for uh, traffic. I will give them that. It will increase traffic. That the road wasn't designed for the amount of traffic. That's incorrect because everything with the 7 was supposed to be a thoroughfare. They won't be able to back out of the driveway. Well, guess what? Nobody in Malbrook can back out of the driveway, and the busway can be converted. And that's incorrect.
I wanted to say something at the beginning when I say, and then I'm going to answer your questions. For all those people out there, I have no intentions of running, but I live in this community. I love this community, and I will certainly start giving my opinion. So this is not a platform. This is not anything other than just giving the facts and my opinion. Going back to your thing, since 1978, that bridge has been on the books on numerous different studies, from the Corradino study, from the Kimley Horn study, from Marlin Engineering's notes. It's been there. It's always been there, and that is by charter. Miami-Dade County has got to take control of our roads and ensure that there is a process and a method for people to be able to travel on our roads. Our commissioner's district isn't Palmetto Bay. It's Palmetto Bay all the way down to Homestead. She has a responsibility for everybody in her district, and she has a responsibility to uncork some of these bottlenecks.
I mean, a small minority, if you think about it, and if Marsha Matson says, well, we don't want to represent the minority, well, guess what? If you take that and you put it on the county commissioner side, okay, well, why should she represent the minority?
And I want to go back to that comment. I don't want to lose that
I will.
Comment.
Okay, so if you think about what Marsha Matson say, well, we want to represent the majority. Well, guess what? That's what's being done by our commissioner, right? She's representing the majority of people. She's doing exactly what Marsha Matson said in an email. I do want to say,
actually, she's doing more than what Marsha Matson said in the email, because Marsha Matson is saying she's going to represent the majority. Our Commissioner Cohen Higgins, has basically said, I want to give a voice to everybody that's pro or anti-bridge. And I'm bringing it forward to the TPO because I believe in the professional studies that this is the only solution left to resolve the issues. She's actually being a lot more inclusive than what our council's saying.
Okay.
Now I want to go back to crime.
I want to go back to crime.
I want to go back to more.
You can do all that, but
property values.
Let's go back.
That's all a bunch of malarkey.
I don't want to talk over you, but I will. I am so tired of hearing short-term solution when it comes to that bridge. They keep bringing up it's a short-term solution. It's a short-term solution. Somebody needs to explain to me what the definition of a short-term solution is and how they came up with. Because I got to tell you something. It is not a short-term solution. It's a long-term solution. And Kimley Horn recommended that bridges on 87th and 77th Avenue in 2016. I'm looking at my notes. And you can actually find that recommendation in the Miami-Dade TPO.org. Okay, so every time the mayor comes up and says, and she's banged this, it's a short-term solution. It's not like we're closing the bridge down. The bridge will stay open. So how can it be a short-term solution if you're gonna keep the bridge open? Explain that to me.
It's a great soundbite, isn't it?
It's a great soundbite. It's wrong.
It's an absolute great soundbite. But here's the reality. It's going to take more than just one solution to resolve the issues.
Correct.
One of the things that has to be resolved is Old Cutler Road. It's been sitting there. Have you heard anybody on this council advocating for a quicker start to try to unclog Old Cutler Road? Nope. Have you heard anybody fight for rail down south, or did they put up a white flag of surrender and accept the BRT? They put up the white flag of surrender, accepted the BRT. Do you hear them saying that we need to ensure that we continue to have and make sure that what we have is a gold standard BRT? No, they don't. They're out there. Look, all that our council has done, in my humble opinion, on what they're doing right now is embarrass our community. They've further diminished our role and our advocacy in the county and with other cities. They've alienated our commissioner. That's going to bode well, and we need money from our county commissioners, isn't it? She's alienated numerous county professional staff from the lawyers' offices with this BS conflict resolution that's coming up, with the other conflict resolution with the stop sign. I mean, they
A
know us as
lawsuit with
they
license.
know us.
It's not a conflict, it's a lawsuit.
It's a lawsuit, of course.
It's a four-way.
They
Okay.
know us as the village of litigation. They've alienated our sister cities, and they've divided our community instead of united. That's the biggest one that hurts me the most.
Well,
They've actually divided our community from the ones that have from the have-nots.
I can tell you the biggest issue with me is the residents in District 3 just, they just don't care about they don't, there's nobody that's sitting on the council right now that cares. Okay, even the person that supposed to represent District 3, they don't care about District 3. They've shown it over and over and over again.
Yeah,
I mean, District 3 should at least have one representative on the council who cares about them. And Marcia Matson does not care. She doesn't care. You're speechless, I know.
Yeah, I don't even know what to. I don't even know how to answer that.
Okay, so go through the crime, danger, house depreciation. Let's go through that because they're all red herrings.
They exactly are. I looked at some of the property values that are on 152nd Street, for example. That's a main road that has a lot of traffic. There is no difference in the appraised values from houses that are a block in. I've looked on 82nd Avenue. I've looked on 87th Avenue south of the bridge versus north of the bridge. There isn't a drop because you're on one of the main thoroughfares compared to one of the side streets. Look at all the houses west of US 1 on 144th Street with all those houses that are on our main thoroughfare there. And you do not see that. The property appraisals office has said as much. I'm sure that tonight that the CCC, if they're there, they'll reiterate that. Crime's another one that's a red herring. It sounds great. It's a great scare tactic, which is really what it is, but it's not based in fact. You look at our village, most of the crime that occurs in our village
is in District 3.
Is in District 3 or along the US 1 corridor, and there's hardly any crime on the interior sides, which includes main thoroughfares like 152, 144, 82nd Avenue, 77th Avenue, 67th Avenue, and you don't see crime on main arterial roads. So that's another one that sounds great, scares people, divides our community, divides. And
this was supposed to be a person. The mayor was supposed to be a person that brought everybody in our community together. And what she's doing is just the opposite.
Well, listen, instead of building, I'm going to use this pun, and instead of building bridges, what this council and this mayor is doing is scorching the earth. And that scorched earth philosophy is going to come back and haunt future councils that are going to have to clean up this mess.
And by the way, it's going to be years. It's going to be years to clean up the mess that they're creating right now.
I want to get back to that.
I want to wait. Stop. Old Cutler and Ludlam, two of the busiest streets, right? In Palmetto Bay and in Pinecrest. What do you see on those streets? You see multi-million-dollar houses. So you cannot tell me, okay, nobody can tell me that if you're on a busy street, that it devalues your house.
Look at the nice new houses that are going up on 184th Street and the Palmetto Bay side. Those are $1.5 million price tag homes, and they're on 184th Street. There's nothing that's going to be able to show that. Look, our village has had an incredible history. We've always have had great working relationship with our standing commissioners. We had a great working relationship with Katie Sorensen, and we worked through some tough issues with her. We had a great working relationship with Linda Bell. We had a great working relationship with Daniela Levine Cava, which is now our county mayor, who actually gave us a $7.5 million grant under her watch. She watched out for us, and we had a great working relationship with her. And now that's gone. We basically have destroyed any possibilities of a decent working relationship for the time being. You ask yourself, what's next? What's our council and our mayor's plans to minimize the damage that's been caused? There is none. Does anybody that's listening or will see this afterwards, does anybody think that the council will ever be receptive to anything from our village for the time being? Does that when I left as a village manager, we had agreed to the fixes for Old Cutler Road. It's been a year and a half and nothing's happened. We had talks, three-way talks with Cutler Bay and the county and ourselves to turn 184th Street into a boulevard complete street that would have had money involvement from Cutler Bay, the council, the county, and us, and that died on the vine because nobody could follow through on it. We had discussions to have a second part of the $7.5 million downtown grant for the downtown. That's died on the vine. We had discussions to ensure that we would have a transit stop for the BRT in our downtown area. The council never went back to the county. County moved it to 168th Street. So now we have a downtown district that doesn't have a transit stop. How's that work? We were supposed to have acquired land for parks from surplus county lands and FP&L properties. Died on the vine. We have been working with South Florida Water Management District for canal restoration, that they were going to actually start doing some. Have you heard anything about canal restoration lately? All these agencies, instead of working with them, we're antagonizing them, and we're threatening them with lawsuits.
And we're alienating
We
them.
almost walked away from something that was near and dear to your heart, where we wanted to have a pier at Salada. And because it was something that you brought forward that we worked on, they tried to kill it. They brought it back by the grace of God, and they're moving forward with it. But that never. Oh
no,
they
voted.
Well.
They voted against that. It was the last meeting. The last meeting I had, they voted to turn down the pier out of spite because I brought it forward and I had been working on it. And then after I was gone, they voted to.
How is that serving our public good?
Wait. What's funny is after I left, they voted for it. So
how does that serve our residents in any meaningful way? What's been done to help our residents out? What's been done with any area of our community, other than being antagonistic, divisive, and quite frankly, fumbling even on the budget?
Well, this kind of reminds me of when Shelley Stanzik was mayor, and she spent 4 years fighting Palmer Trinity and got absolutely nothing accomplished. Nothing. She did nothing except for they spent time, all the time they spent fighting Palmer Trinity while the traffic was growing and growing, while there were more and more people moving into Palmetto Bay. I mean, she dropped the ball, or that council dropped the ball really poorly, because the only thing they could focus on literally was Palmer Trinity, which was not as big of an issue as they made it out to seem.
Yep. And
$1 million.
And by the way,
and $1 million in taxpayer dollars fighting it.
$1 million, and it was more. We needed to actually pay them close to $800,000, which is the very first thing that Mayor Flynn and myself tackled, and we got that $800,000 down to zero by negotiations, by a promise to Palmer Trinity that we would leave them alone, and we would allow them to be good neighbors, and and a promise from them that they would be good neighbors to that community. And my tenure as manager, we never had an issue with Palmer Trinity, and they've been able to do an incredibly gorgeous campus there without interference.
Oh, and they've reduced traffic actually with the campus.
And it's the same group.
Yeah,
it's very similar tactics: fear,
and red herrings.
And they scare the residents. And what they're doing is ruining our village.
They are definitely
trying to stay in power by being fear mongers.
That's right.
That's really the bottom line.
The mayor is sitting there saying that our commissioner is pitting resident against resident, when it's actually Mayor Karen Cunningham who's doing it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Here's an interesting thing. When there was a CCC that was in our village hall doing these meetings, There was no village attorney there. There was no village clerk there. There was no police presence there. They were basically just left there to flounder. And they had two meetings. We have our mayor coming out and basically saying she feared for their safety.
Oh, that is one thing I want to touch on. How can a mayor say that she feels for their safety when they're sitting in our village hall having meetings? What is that? What kind of message does that give people? She actually feels for their safety. She is basically the person that's designated to make sure that village hall is safe with the village manager and the police. So explain what that message is.
You can probably do a better job of explaining it than I can, and I see that our comments have kind of like disappeared here, but
Yeah.
you know, and then all of a sudden, look at the difference, okay, from that to what occurred last night. Last night, you could see police officers there. Last night, we had our village attorney there explaining to him how Sunshine works. Last night, we had our village clerk there. Last night, we had our mayor there talking to him, ensuring that everything was hunky-dory. And I still think it was a zoo, but that's
it was a circus. Not a zoo.
That's my
Yeah.
take on it. But look at the difference. There was support from a professional staff. And it's as if she wanted to see this fail.
Oh, no, she definitely wanted. So you could tell from the outskirts that
So
she
then why
wanted
did she
to
get
see
into
it
it in the first
because
place?
I got to tell you something. Why did she do it in the first place? The fact of the matter was she found out before she decided to abandon the CCC, she found out an hour or 2 hours prior that the police department was going to come in, the fire department was going to come in, and I think traffic experts were going to come in, and it did not. Those people were not going to fit her scenario, okay, of what she's been saying. So she says, I don't want my residents to find out the truth. So I'm just going to take my ball and go home. And that's exactly what she did.
Look, I know that she's called around to some of those professionals,
Yeah.
begging them to come out there and try to help support her stance. And the answer is no, because no professional engineer is going to come out here that's done a real bona fide study, and there's only a few of them, and I kind of mentioned some of them, that are going to go against what
the facts are.
What the facts are.
That's
it's not going to do it.
She just does not have the facts for her scenario that she's trying to express to the village.
And I'd love to be able to say that there is an alternative. There was one that we were going to try to do that this council walked away from. And I cannot blame our commissioner for taking care of an issue that's been a sore in our community for so long, and that's been getting worse and worse and worse. She had at a State of the Village, she had a protest. She had a protest the other night. It wasn't a big one, but she had a protest the other night at one of her. I mean, this is the first time I've ever seen
no other mayor
protests.
Even
in
Shelley
our village.
Stanzik didn't have protests.
Yep. Well, unless you consider your booth outside of one of the State of the Villages a protest. Now, you know, Martin Luther King says that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. To me, this village matters. I raised my family in this village. I have my roots in this village. I believe that this is a great, great community that could really be the shining star of all our county. But we can't have is a divisive rhetoric that we're seeing. We can't have the misinformation. And if you will all notice, most of the misinformation rarely comes from the mayor, but it comes from all her little satellites and all her little friends and all her little shadow government. Those are the ones that she sends out attacking everybody.
Those would be the little yellow minions?
Those are the little minions. We can't have a village that's increasing taxes just to maintain the status quo. We can't have a decision that continuously makes poor zoning decisions. And we are the epitome of poor zoning decisions right now. We can't have a community that promises you safety and says at no time did we ever imagine reducing police. And we're 6 months into this new budget year, and we're still down officers.
Oh, wait. Let me get in there because I'm going to I'm like the color commentator. Karen had a coffee with Karen the other day. Okay, there were 4 people there. I was one of them, but there were 2 police officers sitting at Starbucks that she had taken off the streets, okay, or off the streets, okay, to sit there and make sure that she was safe. Now, I got to tell you something. I'd much rather.
No, I'd be scared of you too.
Yeah. I was very well behaved. I would much rather those police officers were on the streets, making sure that cars weren't getting, robbed or burglarized, and then 2 police officers on their time, okay, sitting there getting paid to watch a coffee with Karen. I think that's an abuse of power, personally.
It's not the first time. I haven't seen it with other mayors, but it's not the first time.
Well, it's the first time I've ever seen it, and I think it's an abuse of power.
So we also have a deteriorating maintenance throughout our community. Look at the entrances. That one of the first things she did. What was that? She did something about the streets. A street by street initiative where we were supposed to try to improve the appearances of our streets. Can anybody go look at them and see what they look like now? They're falling apart. That's taxpayer money that isn't being maintained. You add all this up, and you have a growing harmony of distrust against government. And it never, ever, ever should have gotten there. But when you don't have leadership, and when you're afraid to act, this is what happens. And I said it all summer long. I never really wanted to run for office, but I knew that there was things that were inherently wrong with our village. And I thought that message needed to get out. And we needed to make sure that we can right this ship. And we're not. This ship has now got many more holes, and it's sinking at a lot quicker rate than I ever imagined.
Oh no, we're in deep doo-doo. So let's shift gears for a second. So there was an article this week, and Grant Miller signed it, and put it out there, and it was definitely written by Steve Cody. Okay, Steve Cody ghost wrote it for Grant Miller. How I know this is because I basically spoke to Grant, and he would not deny it. Okay, so let's talk about Steve Cody's attempt to increase taxes next year to have the status quo, and what you've looked at and what you've basically figured out about the tax increase that's coming, that could possibly be coming the Residence Way.
Yeah, you know that I have a new little nickname for him. But I do want to go back to the very beginning with Marsha Matson, where she says, quote unquote, a manager implements council decisions. Mr. Cody, you're not a dumb man. And it's a shame that you've actually succumbed to this. But the fact that you're saying that we bought this piece of land, which is for the community center, and that is what's led to our deficit, isn't right, isn't the truth. And quite frankly, I thought that you were smarter than that, to be honest with you.
This is a guy that wants a tax increase. He can't pay his IRS liens. He can't pay his mortgage. He can't pay numerous bills he owes. Okay, and he's trying to be the financial wizard of Palmetto Bay. That shows how desperate we are.
Well, I want to finish with that.
By the way, the one acre of land, we could have sold it back.
That's where I was going.
Okay, so but the mayor voted against it, and Marsha Matson voted against selling it back. So if Councilman Steve Cody actually thinks that led to the demise of our financial condition, why didn't he turn to the other 2 council members who voted against selling it back for the exact same amount of money and say, hey, let's bring it up again and let's sell it?
Well, first of all, that was purchased and bought by council action and council vote, negotiated by the village attorney. And the real reason for it was to keep traffic out of Palmetto Bay.
Right.
Because there was going to be an 1,100 student charter school there. And the reason for it was you thought that would be the best way to stop it going forward, is to purchase it. By the way, that's what Color Bay is doing right now.
That's right.
Color Bay is going around and trying to buy land to ensure that it doesn't affect their residents' quality of life.
And they're getting accolades for it.
And they're getting accolades for it. But because of the political winds of this village, this is being chastised. And that land can be. They actually said it the other day, to the tune that they said that they might actually, that they might actually sell it back if they get the zoning that they want on the other, whatever. It's just so convoluted. So convoluted.
But they do want to spend money for a 10-foot wide sidewalk.
Oh, absolutely.
all
they
around
want to spend money for 10-foot sidewalks. They
Yeah.
want to spend money on a public relations firm.
Yeah.
They want to spend money on making sure that they can self-promote themselves and do the events that they want to. Look, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because it's moot. But I'm going to ask our residents. I'm going to say this to our residents, and I will give this to David, and he can put it up somewhere. We do not need. And by the way, Mr. Cody, and I want to get back to the bridge, is another person that's extremely flippant. Okay, he ran on a pro-bridge campaign, and all of a sudden now he got the memo from the rest of the group, and all of a sudden he's anti-bridge.
Well, of course, because he had a file in line right behind the mayor. Listen, there's two people that owe her a lot.
And I'm actually going to.
Okay, there's two people on the council that owe the mayor, and it's the vice mayor, Leanne Tellem, okay, who Karen Cunningham helped get elected, and Steve Cody. So they have to answer to her. What are you doing?
No, I'm reading something.
It's in the middle of our show.
I understand, but I want to make sure that I wrote it right. Read it right. Here's his response to everybody that he said he was pro-bridge. No apologies. Doesn't care. Too bad, so sad. I'm in office and now I do what I want. That was his response.
Funny, that's what he said to the bar. No apologies.
Now, if this council could only read, in 2017, you and at that time, Councilwoman Larissa Segalara asked me to do a study by William Lampert, projecting what our issues would be going forward, and what would happen with no growth, little growth, or no growth, moderate growth, or
and you nailed
growth.
it.
That study showed that we would be at a deficit this year of $1.9 million if we didn't take steps. We took steps and we avoided that, but somehow those wheels fell off the bus, and that deficit is there and it's growing. And I just think there's a lot of things that they're not looking at. By his own admission, he's saying that we've cut to the bone in our staff. Let me give you some numbers here, Mr. Singer. Currently, our staff to
maybe
resident.
You should give it to Mr. Cody because he's the one that's actually saying things that are not right.
I really don't want to.
Okay.
I really don't want to give him so much
Okay.
airtime.
Okay.
I mean, that's what Grant's for.
Well,
So-
I mean, Grant owes him something for ghostwriting
I'm
his
just
article.
wondering who pays when they go have lunch. Currently,
Neither of them.
Currently, our staff to resident ratio is one staff member for every 412 residents. Pinecrest is 1 for every 490. Cutler Bay is 1 for every 1,490. We haven't cut to the bone, Mr. Cody. In fact, even using Pinecrest's numbers, we have 10 more employees than we should. Now, using his own numbers, which we have 12% vacancy rate 6 months into our fiscal year, that lets me know that we have 8 employees that we haven't employed and we haven't given them a job for. And if we don't need them after 6 months, why even have them on the books? That's $400,000 easily there that they could save.
The 3 police officers need to be on the books and hired, though.
By their own admission, their forecast on their revenue was extremely conservative, to say it lightly. That their sales tax and rentals from Thalata was off by about $350,000. That deficit's really starting to shrink, isn't it? $350,000. Now I'm going to talk about one that I know that you brought up during the budget cycle, but didn't get anywhere. I always ran our police force, and it pains me to do this one, on ensuring that we never passed and never exceeded $400,000 annually on overtime.
Okay, But don't steal my thunder,
I'm not.
okay? Because this is something that's really got me annoyed.
And for some reason, our budget now has $850,000 for overtime for our police department.
It was $1 million at one time.
I think you guys brought it down to
Yeah.
850. There's no reason for that, guys. There really is.
Oh, wait. So let me stop you. Right now, we have a police officer that's making over $200,000 a year because of overtime. He is actually bringing in more money than what we are paying the commander of our police force in the village of Palmetto Bay. What residents need to realize is all this overtime is basically costing us police officers. I mean, if you think about it, they're getting paid time and a half where we could actually have another police officer and save 50%.
No, and it's also adding to our deficit.
Okay, and it's also adding to our deficit. So
we have an outside plan, and I'm moving forward because I actually believe that we have probably the best police force in the whole county.
Oh, I love our police force, but that's not the point.
I know, but I'd really rather not hit there. But I want to hit on a couple other things. The last budget that I did, one of the things that I said was that we needed to hire an in-house planning guy because we were paying too much money for an outside firm.
Mm-hmm.
Have they done that? They haven't. So they're spending numerous funds that we could be using in other areas because they haven't had the wherewithal to hire a planner for our village. Which, by the
way, would have saved us probably 50% of his total cost.
When they changed litigation firms, and when we got rid of Dexter Leighton, one of the things that I said was our litigation is going to get very skewed. Those numbers are going to really come back to haunt us. And that's also proven to be right. Not only do we have an in-house village attorney, we now have at least one or two other firms that are feeding at the government trough. And our budget on litigation and on legal fees is going through the roof. We're not looking at the systemic things that are being done wrong in our budget and in trying to balance it. We're not looking at that. We're just looking at trying to keep the status quo and having a great sound bite that we've cut to the bone. Mr. Cody, let me tell you some of the positions that have been added in the last 10 years. We've added passport services. We've added a cashier. We've added a third person in our finance department. We've added a PIO officer. We've added procurement. We've added grant writers. We've added a special events coordinator. What for? Because we don't have any special events right now, but we have one. We've added additional code officers. We've added maintenance staff, and we have contracted tennis instructors. To me, sir, that's not cutting down through the bone. So why, I ask you, is council trying to do a money grab?
Well, you know I'm a CPA, right? And if you can't make it on income, you got to cut it from expenses. And they haven't even looked at cutting expenses as far as I'm concerned. All they're telling residents is you are going to, next year, we're looking at a $500 to $800 increase in your taxes.
Yeah, you're about right.
And on top of that, you're looking at insurance that's going to go up 20%.
Well, let me go through that.
Okay, so
they're proposing taking your millage rate from where it was a couple years ago, 2.20, to the same rate that Cutler Bay has right now, which is 2.6198. Guys, that's a 19% increase on your millage rate. Now let's talk about Cutler Bay because that's a city that's doing things right. One of the reasons that they've raised their rates is because they've gone out and tried to make things and try to improve the quality of life of their community. Buy a piece of land, parcel of land that they want to turn into their central park, village hall, community center, a place for the community to gather. For that, you need money. They had a straw vote, and they're having a straw vote on how to go forward with this and how to be able to spend their taxpayers' monies on it. They just finished buying 8 acres of environmentally sensitive land on Old Cutler Road and 184th Street. They're doing the right things for that community.
By the way, with EEL money.
Partially with EEL money and partially with their money.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a story. There is a story behind why they've had to raise their millage rate. And that story is a good one, and it's one that goes to quality of life. Here, his point of view was, for us to continue with our status quo, this is what we need to do. I've got an alternative suggestion here, because it's not always about cutting taxes, and with that I agree with him on. But I do believe that the taxes serve a better purpose. I do believe that we can fix our deficit without having to do a tax increase. And if you still wanted to raise our millage rate and you still wanted to triple our FP&L, well, actually not triple, because our FP&L, let me finish there. So he wants to raise our millage rate 19%. He wants to take a Florida Power and Light franchise fee, which is sunsetted to go zero in about a year, and he wants to take it up to 6%
from 3%.
Actually, it's supposed to be zero.
And it was supposed to be zero, so he wants to take it up to 6%. Go from 0 to 6%.
He wants to,
which is a 6% increase on your electric.
He wants to double your stormwater fee. And that's okay, because it's only pennies on the dollar. Well, let's talk about some other things. Flood insurance is going through the roof, and it's going to go up 20 or 30% on an annualized basis. I don't know if you checked your windstorm coverage lately, but those insurance rates are going up.
Okay, well, let me jump in here. I have a policy that's due on one of my townhomes that I own. It was $800 last year. I just got notice that it's going to be $2,300 this year. So everybody should expect, okay, your insurance rates, both flood and fire and casualty insurance, go up.
Go look at gasoline prices, and the average person spends around 700 gallons a year. It's gone up 60 cents.
Yeah, but that's because of the that's.
But it's gone up.
It's gone up. It will come back down.
Food prices have gone up. At the end of the day, 20% of our community is elderly. 20% of our community basically lives on fixed incomes. 20% of our community is the ones that they're always saying that they're trying to do stuff for. And here's proof that they're trying to force you out of our village. They're not taking care of our elderly.
Oh, the increases, as Bev Gerald would say every time she walked up to the microphone, it's only going to go up the cost of a hamburger or a sub sandwich or a pizza. Well, let me tell you something, Bev. It's a lot more than one pizza and one sub and one hamburger this year. Okay, and if you're on a fixed income, you are going to get really, really, really hurt. Okay, with what they are planning on doing in taxes.
Here, let me give you an alternative. Fix the deficit. Make sure that your expenses match your balance. I mean, come on, basics. Make sure that we do the basics, and the things that we don't need, we don't do. And how about putting a straw ballot out there like Cutler Bay did? We could take that increase that you're proposing, and we could purchase a Luxcom land. Can you imagine if we turned that into a nice park, or maybe even a marina, but we ask our residents if that's what they want? You want a representative democracy? Ask those questions. Ask those ballot questions. We could buy the Luxcom land. We could probably purchase a 22-acre forest and protect the Pine Rock land. We could complete the traffic calming that was approved in 2015 and that this council has never wanted to fund. We could build a community center equivalent in size to the one in Pinecrest. We can do so much with that increase in taxes that actually would contribute to the quality of life. And the most important and unique thing is, we could ask our residents if what's important to you, and are you willing to pay for it? But instead, what we get is platitudes, demagoguery, and grabs into our back pockets that have no merit.
For an inflated, ballooned budget.
But we have money to fight litigation against a bridge that's not going to get us anywhere. And what is the alternative to that bridge? There is no alternative to that bridge at this moment.
In your opinion, what do you think the over-under, what do you think the bridge goes through or doesn't go through? I'm curious.
If you listen to the professionals,
Mm-hmm.
if you
And take
believe
emotion
that
out of this?
if you take the emotion out of this, and there is no other viable alternative, that bridge is going to happen. What you don't hear is a council, a mayor, or anybody else talking about how they can minimize the damage that may happen north of that bridge, because there's things that they could do to try to
Mm-hmm.
minimize it. But those are things that they should have been doing for the areas south of the bridge and never did.
Okay. I got to wrap this up because Tommy's throwing hands up in the air going, you're out of time.
I thought we had 2 hours tonight.
We should, but
I have
okay.
a whole lot more to talk about.
I know you do. You can come back in a couple of weeks. Next week, Alex Pinellas is going to be here, and we're going to get into how he thinks Dade County is running and other things. Alex Pinellas is going to be here, and then I'm not sure who's going to be here on the 11th, but I know Alex will be here. This week, as usual, I have my Chicken Shit Award, and it's a doubleheader. It's a doubleheader today because I'd like to call out Domino's, who says that they delivered a pizza to Michael Miller that I paid for that never showed up. So they get the Chicken Shit Award because I specifically bought Michael Miller and Tommy two pizzas today. And literally neither of the pizzas showed up. Yes, to the pizza guy, the pizza delivery guy. The next person I'd like to give the Chicken Shit Award, and I'm glad Grant Miller is here, I'm giving it to Steve Cody for ghostwriting an article for Grant Miller and not taking responsibility.
I take full responsibility. I'm not like you, behind lawsuits.
Oh, I've only got 3 or 4 lawsuits. Anyway, so that's the deal. Good night, everybody. God bless and peace out.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.